So a lot of people have already noticed these issues and noted it in comments of basically every video of theirs. But I just wanted to make a discussion video of what's the problem with madness. Talking about the NormalBoots series, Madness. So, I am recording this fresh off watching the best PS1 games, Final Fantasy IX versus Ape Escape, with their biggest dislike to like ratio ever being as split as possible, and there's a very clear reason why. And this episode kind of encompasses everything that is wrong with the show. The premise is great. It's such a great premise. It's entertaining. It can be, and it's just four people discussing, or five people discussing what is good about either games or shows, whatever, in a bracket-like system. The problem with this is there is no structure outside of that, which is probably why they call it Madness. They didn't want that much structure. But then you got the first season with Jared being all like, what makes a good Nintendo 64 game? Well, we're going to choose a game that totally doesn't deserve it, but it's technically a better than whatever. So, it's stuff like that, arbitrary rules, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So, the base product is there, and then there's no sort of structure whatsoever. And that's really where everything boils down to, is the lack of said structure needed to make it seem a bit more fair in people voting one way or the other. Because if it's not fair, people are going to get mad. Yes, it is a very subjective based show, but there are still problems that lie. So I'm just going to read comments and kind of talk about throughout the seasons what the main issue of the show is. So, season 1, best N64 games. So, this is, the show is still trying, and even in season 3, the show is really still just trying to find itself. But this is really where it started. Obviously, season 1, duh. And, there's a lot of games that won over games that should not have happened, both in winner and losers bracket. Now, I'm not one of the people who are like, Majora should have won, whatever. No, I mean, Ocarina of Time did do more for the series than Majora did, and that's the reason why I won over Majora, even though, whatever. Again, that's all subjective. But the main argument that Jared kept on bringing up was what makes a good Nintendo 64 game. Not what the better game is, but what is the better N64 game. And that right there is an obscure rule, and it's total bullshit. There's so many times in that season we heard, I think this is the better game, but this one is more so of an N64 game, so I'm going to choose that. So games that should have not won because of that arbitrary rule. Like Pokemon Snap. Like, how did that win? I don't even remember what the game it was against, but actually, let me look that up. Diddy Kong Racing, that's what it was. How did a game, on rails, not even shooter, just on rails taking picture of Pokemon game, be a adventure kart racing game? That alone was pretty crap. And that leads to my second point with the season, is the arbitrary of, if I put a TV of Pokemon Snap and a TV of Diddy Kong Racing right in front of you, which one would you go towards? That doesn't mean... You gotta look at the objective side of things, not only subjective. What I mean is, like, yeah, you could have total crazy nostalgia for your game and be like, yeah, I would always go back to that game, and I love it. But then you could be like, okay, well, this game is better in this way, this way, this way. It has more features, has a better story, has more to do. You could more replayability, But I think this one's more fun, so I'm choosing that. That's not how you should run this. Yeah, it's you giving an opinion on which one is better, but you also have to think of what is actually better. And the show kind of shows off. The show tries to make it feel like it's that, but also not at the same time. And this is where it comes back to zero structure. The show 100% doesn't know what exactly is. They just kind of create rules as they go along. Now, adding some subjectivity in there is fine. Especially if like I really cannot choose between these two games, and you give reasons for this game, and then you could probably go to the okay, which one would I rather play right now? That makes sense. But if you're like, well, this game has everything that's better about it in every single way, and then this game is I want to play it right now, so I'm gonna go that game. That does not do the game that is actually better justice. If the game is better and you're trying to determine what the best N64 game is, you should choose objectively what is the better game. That's the only way it's going to be fair. Yes, there's going to be subjective opponents, but you have to think of it objectively if you're trying to really find what the best game is. Now let's go to Season 2. So Season 1 was a mess. And it just kept on saying, what's the best N64 game? It became a meme in the comments. And the comments, there's at least one person like, well, but what's the... So it was a mess. Now, it was kind of inevitable that it was going to be against Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. Some games should have been in the loser bracket outside of others. That's just kind of what I'm saying. Now, Season 2 was such a hot mess. It was definitely worse than Season 1 in just throwing rules out of the window. Who gives a fuck? Let's just, like, make up rules just to see what's the better 90s cartoon show. Again, it was inevitable that SpongeBob was going to make it to the end. No shit, duh, whatever. SpongeBob against Batman, yeah, whatever. But most of the shows that got shafted in the first round should have not gone. And my biggest issue was the Magic School Bus episode. Ed, Edd n Eddy versus the Magic School Bus. Everybody said Ed, Edd n Eddy is the better show. Better voice acting, better characters, better everything. Oh, but if you send the game... Not game. What the fuck am I talking about? If you have to send one of these shows out in space to be preserved while everything else dies, I think that was the analogy. I might have flipped it, but if one show had to live on, which one will you choose? And that's another arbitrary. Going back to this theme of this show. Another arbitrary reason, and they use that a lot. Which one is more important? And again, this totally destroys the whole what is best argument. This show is not what is best. They need to somehow change that if they're going to keep on doing it this way, which this third season kind of done this way, but the third season has its own issues. I'll get to that once I get to that. But this season, it's still going around that dumb, like, what is more important outside of what is actually better. Magic School Bus should have been basically not on the list. It should have been destroyed in every corner, any possible way, because it's literally the only time you would ever see it would be in school when, the teacher rolls the fucking CRT into the room and pop in the VHS. Hey, we got some Magic School Bus. Well, awesome. They even said, like, when I go home, what I'm flipping to is not Magic School Bus. It would be Ed, Edd and Eddy or SpongeBob or Courage or whatever. But Ed, Edd and Eddy get shafted because Magic School Bus is educational, so it's more important to get bent. That is not what makes the best show. It's like everything else is wrong with it. And, you know, if you see it now and you try to compare it to, it's like, oh, well, you can see clearly what the better show is, what is more entertaining. And that's what makes the better show. But if you're just going to use some arbitrary dumbass rules, then why is there a discussion at all? It's just like, it doesn't make sense. And that was almost the entire season. Hey Arnold and Animaniacs, SpongeBob vs. Powerpuff. There's no reason Animaniacs should have lost to Hey Arnold. They all said that it's the better show. And it's like, well, and this is another arbitrary thing. Oh, well, this show had a lot more meaning, and it was more in depth, and it had discussion, where this one's just a comedy show. In turn, Hey Arnold should win. Why can't a show be better than another show if it has a different focus? And plenty of comments on the season said that. It's like, why can't we just see the comedy show as a comedy show and see how well it's written? It sets out to do a thing, and it does that thing perfectly. And yet, you're putting the other show over because it has a little bit more meaning? Like, this is the objectively better show, but this show has it gives you a little bit more to think about. So, it wins. How and why? It doesn't make sense. You should just focus on what's better. What's better about this and what's better about this. Compared to what would I rather watch? Well, I'd rather watch Animaniacs. That would give me a way better time. Then that's the better show. If it will give you a better time, a show doesn't have to make you think for it to be better. And that goes back to the Magic School Bus. Magic School Bus is a shitty show, and I never liked that show, by the way. But biases aside, objectively, it is the worst show, but just because it makes you think and makes you learn, makes you better. That's saying all the educational videos that you see in school, just blabbering about science and other bullshit, is better than anything you watch at home, because that gives you more learnings, gets you those brains workings. That's not how you should be judging what's the better show. And now, we get to Season 3. Now, Season 1, almost everybody played those games, right? Everybody played all those games, if not most. Season 2, everybody watched those shows, even though they haven't seen those shows, they did some research and they rewatched those shows. Even except for Barry, he just worked off nostalgia, and that kind of skewed things a bit, and I think he should have just done his research. And that should be, I think, a kind of a requirement for this show in general, is you have to know what the fuck you're talking about before you start talking about it. Yeah, it's supposed to be just, a few friends making discussion over the table, but you're setting an actual tournament bracket. There are rules. It's a production, and it's a NormalBoots production. It's not some low tier. It's not me trying to make this show. It's NormalBoots trying to make this show. See the difference? Yeah, I know what position I'm at. I'm not delusional. Season 3 really, really screws everything up on the whole knowing what the fuck you're talking about. And by this, I mean the latest episode, which at the time of this recording is Final Fantasy IX vs. Ape Escape, shows blatant ignorance. The real way to use that term, so it's not insulting, just factual. Blatant ignorance of what you were talking about, and a game got shafted because of that very thing. Let's talk about like Resident Evil 2 versus Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I could kind of understand why people went one way or the other. I think Castlevania should have totally won. It's definitely the better game. Barry's saying, well, I don't like it because I only play it for an hour. And he noticed, they did say, oh, well, okay, I should have played it more and I'll probably get more out of it because it is a Metroidvania. And the subjectivity there is deep, especially with how this entire bracket's been going. Subjectivity has been very deep. But the most recent episode shows it hard. And I was starting to get happy with this season because Gerard was like, okay, we're going to toss out that, I'm not going to do like what makes the best PS1 game bullshit. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just like, what is the better game? What do I want to play? What do I like the most? That's what we're going to vote on. Perfect. If you're not going to have a set amount of rules of objectivity, just talk about what makes the better game. But you have to play the fucking game to know what the better game is. At least 2 out of the 4 people, that's not the host, 2 out of the 4 people, which is half, didn't play Final Fantasy IX. And I don't think the host, which his name escapes me, he doesn't sound like he played it either. They did a little bit of research. They listened to the music. They've seen the game, not actually played it, but seen it. And they're making a decision off of that. And it's super unfair. People who've played the game 100% know that it's just a better game. You get way more content. You got a way better story, better characters, better looks. It's such a big game and it needs 4 discs in order to play it. Or 1 download on the PlayStation Store. Times are different now. What I'm saying is, it's definitely objectively probably the better game, but even subjectively, if they played the game, they would know. And this is why it's almost 50-50 on like and dislike ratio. And I'm sure there's people who totally disagree with the choice, and like the episode anyway, because they don't vote with their anger like I do. And that's what kind of really the bullshit part is not knowing what you're talking about, but being a judge on the show, determining what game goes on. If you haven't played the game, then you shouldn't be on the show. Now, I like everybody who's on this season for sure. I like basically everyone who was on the show so far, but they've done some dumb shit, which everybody can do, and I'm not faulting them exactly. It's not like, oh, well, I don't like you as a person now because of this thing. No, that's fucking shallow and stupid. But it does anger me a lot that an amazing game with actual smart controls, granted, it is a turn-based RPG, so it's kind of hard to fuck up that, but an amazing feeling game and just all-around amazing game got shafted because a couple people didn't play it. And this is where that requirement kind of, now you can see that requirement should be there of do some research. Say, hey, this is the bracket. You have 3 weeks to get familiarized with these games. If you've already played it, play it again, or just use what your previous knowledge is. You would think Kid Icarus, the PS1 guy, the guy who reviews PS1 games for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. It's been 10 years, Jesus Christ. I think he's on season 10, and seasons are usually in years, but he could have also done it differently, so I don't know. But a multitude of years of being the PS1 guy, and he hasn't played one of the most critically famous games. Yeah, he doesn't like JRPGs or turn-based RPGs, but you would think if you're gonna have such an accolade to yourself that you would play the popular games. You've played the most obscure shit ever, but you didn't play Final Fantasy IX, arguably one of the best Final Fantasy games ever. So that's just disappointing that a game gets totally shafted because of ignorance. They cut off the arbitrary bullcrap and just like, okay, what is the best? But now they replace that with not knowing what you're talking about. And also the episode, half of it was just trolling and shitting on Final Fantasy 9 because they didn't play the game. And that was, like, I could see, like, the first couple minutes maybe being like that and you get annoyed, but whatever. But it's super disrespectful to a certain point. And I feel so bad for Final Fantasy 9 in this instance because it was just fucking murder. So I'm going to read some comments off just this episode, just to kind of get my point across. Zagun says, "Oh man, this episode was a mess, especially this season is kind of weird. You guys talked about 6 games already, and it looks like Gerard is the only one who played all of them. Fun and trolling is good, like in the first season, but this concept really needs a guy that keeps everyone together and focused on point. Gerard was that guy sometimes in the first season. Gerard tries to do that, but goddamn, people didn't want to do it. I know it's hard to talk about a game you never played, but come on. There are 2 Final Fantasy games. Gerard was meant to be in the season. Okay, I don't know about Gerard meaning to be on the season. Maybe he did play all the PS1 games, and that might have been better than Barry. I love Barry, but he doesn't seem like he played a lot of PS1 games, and I think he's even admitted that, so why is he on this bracket? I'm just saying, on a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense. Forger343 says, this series needs a better discussion framework. The base is great, but the conversation and actually knowing the games and whatnot needs work. Very true. By the way, seen the bracket, Parappa Rapper versus Final Fantasy VII. Parappa Rapper beats Final Fantasy VII. This series is officially a joke, and I'm just going to watch it for 100% entertainment because it means nothing. Which it kind of really is, because they're not making it that serious, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, fucking Parappa Rapper, really? H2O Monster says, honestly, you should each give yourselves enough time to actually play each game in the bracket. That way we can avoid another catastrophic discussion like this one. Like I said before, playing the games and actually doing your research a little bit would help the discussion better, and maybe it could have swayed one way or the other and make less people mad because you're voting because you just didn't play a game. A game automatically loses because you didn't do your research. Bass player Taylor says, if they knew that they'd be debating Final Fantasy 9, why didn't they take a few hours to try it? Like what I've been saying. In the 90s TV show bracket, most of them watched a couple episodes of the shows they hadn't seen or didn't remember. Can't believe that even Caddy, the PlayStation guy, couldn't even be bothered to really look into it. I'm honestly a bit shocked at how this episode wasn't even a discussion. It was just trolling and joking, and then voting for the only one that the 2 they played because they didn't do their homework. I've never played either game myself, but it says a lot that the only people who had really played Final Fantasy 9 felt it was much better than Ape Escape. That is very true. The only people who think that Ape Escape was better is the people who didn't play Final Fantasy 9. Valkyrie says, and it's a response to a comment. So the original comment was, I was expecting Final Fantasy 9 to lose Final Fantasy 7 despite being better, but to Ape Escape, this is just absurd. The whole list is a joke now. Valkyrie says, yes and no. What went wrong in this episode was that 2 out of 5 had actually played the game. As Caddy and the other guy said, Barry, they picked Ape Escape just because they hadn't played Final Fantasy 9, which I think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. But in the future, they should make sure that everyone had played at least seen a full gameplay of the game before they start discussing. The NCS Master says, I'm sorry, but the episode made this bracket lose any sense of seriousness or legitimacy. I'm not trying to cherry pick, I'm just grabbing what I see, and this is what I see. This one is a little harsh, but I'm going to say it. Durstan says, Dyrstan, I've been patient with the whole Madness stain so far, despite some pretty ridiculous wins here and there. But this one is just one side to the point where I'm questioning why you guys even bothered making this video. If you were just going to have 3 people trolling Final Fantasy 9 the entire time, with 2 not even playing the game before, You should have skipped it and done the whole thing off screen. Would have at least seen that. Would have at least been funnier to see AA was randomly the winner in another video. Anyways, I'm tapping out Madness. You've been voted off the island. I don't say. So that guy was obviously mad. I don't say totally not make the episode, but this is what people are feeling. All right. Everybody, it's just everybody's trolling, and it was not a good episode. Yeah, they have. Everybody could have mishaps every now and then, but this was just bad, and it just kind of highlighted everything that's wrong with the series. Now, I'm still going to be watching it, I'm still going to make my angry comments as I do, but this episode really brought, like, if nobody has seen it before, which I saw it in season 1, but if nobody's seen it before, they could see it now. Even the most patient people could be like, all right, this was pretty bad. You just gotta do better. You gotta make it more fair, a little bit more of a production. Yeah, the editing, there's a lot of editing, and there's a lot to it, but it still feels, the discussion is unprofessional. At the very least, take arbitrary shit out, which they did this season, which I'm happy about. If they have to make a tough, very, very tough choice, they just like, okay, which one would I rather play? I understand that. Shit like that makes sense. If you're debating, okay, these, in my mind, these games are objectively as even as they can be. This one's just as good as this one. Which one would I rather play? Okay. Totally, I get it. But then, like, do your homework. Do some research. Play the games. Get people who've actually, if I understand it's just supposed to be just for fun, and you know, you're just trying to get personality out there. But if somebody hasn't played, you should ask somebody, hey, have you played have you played most of the games that we are going to be having on this bracket? And they say no, then they're probably not a good person for that season. Bring them back on the season, or tell them, hey, well, we're gonna start discussion in this many days. Can you get yourself informed? Or, you know, whatever. It's only fair. You're gonna, not only is it gonna be better as a show, but then you're gonna make a lot more people happy. If this discussion was actually totally even, like, I know this game and this is the reason why this game is better than this game, and it was an actual discussion, you wouldn't have a 50-50 dislike to like ratio. Alright? Now, again, you know, NormalBoots is bigger than I am, obviously. They're a whole network with a bunch of people who have a lot of subscribers. But this is also the first time they ever done an opinion piece and a discussion type video. Everything has just been facts or, you know, personal reviews, you know, for everybody else in very comedic videos. Now this is an actual discussion. They're making a tournament bracket. There needs to be more there than what they have in their individual shows, if you kind of catch my drift. So that's my 35-minute rant, which is probably going to cut down to at least 30 minutes. My rant about Madness. I just had to get it out there. And yeah, so if you like this episode, thumbs up. If you want to see more from us, subscribe. And until next time, bye.